Hello, everybody. My name is Rolf Gates, and I've asked Jonathon Relucio, who is a graduate of the Communities Rising training in Berkeley, just to say a few words about his experience. And so I want to thank you for watching this, and I want to thank Jonathon for participating. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to share my experience with folks. Thanks for asking.
Oh, my pleasure. So how's it been?
Yeah, Community Rising for me, I was drawn to it for primarily one reason, and that was it's rare to go ahead and have a circle and community of people of color who are committed to their healing and the healing of the communities that they're a part of. I've been in the yoga space for 14 years in terms of personal practice, and then over a decade in terms of my professional practice. And what I've noticed is that there is a quality of safety and trust that you have in POC spaces that you can't actually experience when I'm in white-dominated spaces or mixed spaces. And so for me, one of the key things in Communities Rising, which I actually really appreciate your leadership, Rolf, is that, being able to go ahead and continually pivot and co-create with my peers and colleagues in terms of the process and the curriculum to go ahead and actually shape the training in a way that actually meets the needs of where we can actually meet the needs of our wounds and the collective wound, our personal wound and the collective wound. And part of that is actually having a space where all of us can collectively identify the values that are most central for us as a community and as people who are healing ourselves and on a path to heal others. How often do we actually get to be in a yoga space where there is a culture and space of self and collective determination, where we get to center our values in a learning and teaching space, as opposed to us having to go ahead and accommodate, the white dominant culture's values at the expense of ours, And another part of it is that, when I'm in white dominated spaces, yoga spaces, is that, when we're going into these spaces, we're going in as individuals and we're not going in as collectives. And so when you're with people of color, cohort and collective, you can't separate yoga with our individual identities and experiences from our collective identities and experiences. That we have to go ahead and bring our culture, our ancestors, and who we are in a struggle, a struggle against systemic injustices and systemic oppression. So we leave out so much of ourselves when we enter yoga spaces and yoga communities, and to go ahead and actually have a space where POCs can exclusively practice together and learn together in a contained space, we're able to go ahead and bring our whole selves. And that's where healing happens, where nothing is left out.
Terrific. Wow. I'm so touched. Can you say a little bit about what's happened since graduation?
Yeah, for me personally?
Yeah.
During graduation is also a time for me where, I'm doing my vocational work is about addressing racial equity in yoga studios and yoga communities. And that was going, building that organization and building that model and that framework and those body of practices for me to do that work was moving side by side while I was in Communities Rising. So in a lot of ways, Communities Rising was going ahead and energizing my body, my mind, my heart, and my spirit so that I can actually continue moving this body of work professionally with my two colleagues. And, that's what's happening. being able to go ahead and work with. It takes a lot of courage and strength to go ahead and step into a yoga studio that might have one person of color in that entire staff and the entire teaching staff, and address the racial inequities that are happening in that workplace, in that learning and teaching space. So being able to go ahead and be part of a collective of Communities Rising was just going ahead and actually strengthening my work side by side with what I was doing in my vocational and my vocational work, which has been really great. You know, like even after Communities Rising, I still feel like I'm journeying with my cohort as I continue doing this work. We've been able to create connections that are just there. You know, they're there and felt. Even as we've moved on as graduates, we're still connected.
Wow, that's nice, Jonathan. I know you could, I want you all to know that Jonathan could go on for another hour and it would be just as priceless. He's just a phenomenal teacher and human being and just a wonderful person to have in my life. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for these words. And his organization is called allthrive.org. And you want to, I'm letting everyone I know who owns a studio around the United States know about his work and what he's up to in terms of really fulfilling. You know, he's bringing work he's done in other spaces into the yoga space. And I believe at the heart of the white yoga community, there's this intention to be inclusive that they have no idea how to accomplish. And Jonathan's really helping to make that intention manifest. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope if you're listening to this, when we come to New Haven this fall, you have a chance to drop by, maybe take an open class or something, and have a chance to get to know me and Nikki and the cohort on a personal level. All right, take care.
Take care, everyone. Thanks, Rolf.